Today I want to talk about my favorite books of 2021. New year, new channel. I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest, but I thought a great video to start would be talking about my favorite books of the past year. And these books are not books that I might even reread. A lot of these are nonfiction. I found myself really drawn to nonfiction last year. I don't know why. I think it maybe if I do a little psychological digging, it might just be maybe I'm inside too much and trying to learn about the inside and connect with things I'm missing while I have to be in quarantine or lockdown. But most of these I think are nonfiction, and as I said, I might not reread these, but these are definitely books that keep coming back to my mind, whether it's something I learned or the even if I wasn't reading it and enjoying it at the time, somehow it kept returning to me long after I read it. So let's get started. The first book I have is Sweetbitter by Stephanie Danler. This book was definitely the main one on the list where I think when I read it, I didn't find it as pleasurable as thinking about it afterwards. This book is about Tess, who is 22, and she is starting her adult life. She has no job and goes into a restaurant, which I think is based on the Union Square Cafe in Manhattan, which I've never been to, but researching this book, it kept coming up. Goes in and basically says, I need a job, help me, I have no skills. And the manager, realizes she has no skills, doesn't know anything about food, doesn't know anything about wine, has no restaurant experience, and for some reason hires her anyway. And the book is, in a basic way, all about her experience in the restaurant and learning about the restaurant business and having her experience with it. But more so, I took away this book is really about character. It's very character driven, and Tess gets entangled with the sommelier and another server and it ends up kind of being a love triangle, which typically I don't like in books, but this is done in a really interesting, thought-provoking way. And when I looked up the reviews for this book, when I saw the other reviews on Goodreads, I wasn't too surprised that it really had a bad reception. People seem to not vibe with it, and I can understand, because the characters' motivations, I think, are at times they're not very good motivations. It's hard to understand, and when you do understand them, you just realize, wow, these people are awful people and very immature. But I think the reason this book stuck with me so much was I had a really similar experience when I was younger and her age in a restaurant. I think I was actually the same age, 21 or 22. And it was so similar and realistic. If you're interested in reading books about restaurants, which I am often in the mood for, this novel was perfect for that. This is the book for you. I think the restaurant details and the way the characters work in a restaurant, and I'm not sure how else to describe it, but when I had the experience in the restaurant, and what Sweetbitter talks about or mentions is everyone is just constantly hungover after partying. And when I was 21, 22 and seeing this, I was kind of like, wow, is this really what people are like? Is this really the real world? And I think that's what Tess is experiencing too. She goes into adulthood, or starting to go into adulthood, and has to face the real world, as we all do, especially after college, and having to make the choice of falling into this kind of immature underdeveloped crowd, or finding, lifting herself above that. And I thought that was really interesting. And the sommelier character, who's, I think her name is Simone, she is a really interesting character, especially from a feminist lens. She is very kind of, I wouldn't even say quirky, but very much like a person who's traveled the world and seems to think she knows so much more than everyone else. And she does look down on the main character for being an immature woman. And it was very interesting how the novel dealt with that and how they kind of interact with each other. Because Simone's supposed to be a mentor to Tess, and she is, but then sometimes is just tired of the immaturity. But she herself is very immature too. So really just a fascinating book to me, and something that keeps popping up in my head. Also, I should say Danler's dialogue is fantastic. Even as I was reading it and wasn't sure how I felt about it, the dialogue really popped out to me as fantastic dialogue. She does such a good job at saying things that, or having her characters say things that a real person would say, but also having such depth with the dialogue. So there you go. That's Sweetbitter. Once again, not sure. I think I would recommend it to people who are interested in kind of that restaurant literature. If you've read Anthony Bourdain's biography or autobiography, actually memoir, I should say, his memoir, and you kind of want a more fictional version of that, I would recommend this. Next up is How to Break Up with Your Phone by Catherine Price. This book, broken down into two parts, is first part talking about why your phone and your relationship to your phone can be addictive. You are reliant on it. We all are, I think. And when you're waking up and the first thing you do is grab your phone without even thinking about it, why that's bad and how to break the habit. And the second part is, and she talks about a very detailed statistics, which are very interesting and also scary. And then the second part, she gives you really a self-help plan on stopping your relationship, your toxic relationship with your phone. And I love nonfiction books that get straight to the point, don't repeat themselves, and just, it's almost like I really enjoy nonfiction books that it's easy to almost skip around the chapters and get information that's useful. Nonfiction books that I don't like are ones that are repetitive. It seems like they're trying to fill up a whole book when they didn't have enough to fill it up anyway. This is certainly not that book. And it definitely has helped my phone addiction. It's made me much more conscious of when we unconsciously reach for the phone or for the social media or any of those things. And this book really helped me be more conscious of what I'm doing when I'm picking up my phone, or going on Twitter or whatever. And highly recommend it if you know you have a bad relationship with technology and you want to do more than just be on your phone or scroll through Twitter, doom scrolling. If you want to stop your doom scrolling, great book for that. Next up is Building a Better World in Your Backyard by Paul Wheaton and Shawn Klassen-Koop. This book was a different book than I've read before. I'm usually not into reading about being green or learning how to live your life better in a green way. It's something I do want to do. It's something I do care about. But I think I get overwhelmed thinking about the world and the way it is. And this book actually was not recommended to me, but I was editing an essay and someone recommended this. And they said they think everyone should read this book. And I really do agree, because it's so approachable and It's so detailed. It has everything you could think of for environmentalism and for making your life greener. The author actually talks about one example is just using less heat in your home. And the author talks about how, we are often, at least this is the case for me, often in one place throughout the day, and you only really get up to go to the bathroom or eat food, that sort of thing. And so what he does is use a electric dog bed on his feet and just bundles up when he can in his seat. People might see it as an extreme, and I don't think he recommends that everyone needs to do this, but it's just an idea of how to live your life more consciously instead of wasting electricity or heat or water. And the same thing with showers. And he talks about how to adjust your heat or your water so it doesn't heat up to a certain degree because you don't need it, and that just saves energy. And it has a more interesting, very cool thing that I thought the book included was how to build a natural swimming pool, which if you've ever looked up natural ponds or self-made ponds or swimming pools, they look so cool. And so he talks about how to build one and all of that. And of course there's the normal things that you would expect, like composting, how to take care of animals, how to not waste food, how to grow your own food, that sort of thing. But very cool book. I highly recommend anyone who is even remotely interested in this stuff to read it. And this book also, a very cute thing is it says to pass the book forward to someone, which I find hard to do because it's something that I keep going back to and thinking about. I first read this digitally here, but with every book that I really, really love and always want to go back to, I buy it for my library. I tend to be a minimalist in terms of books. I don't want piles and piles of books that I only care a little about. So I bought this. I bought this for my collection. And the next book is, I think, very different from others on our list. It's called Stepmonster. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. It's a little bright, but I'll put something up here to show the cover. It's called Stepmonster, a new look at why real stepmothers think, feel, and act the way we do, by Wednesday Martin, who has her doctorate, which she put on the cover. This book is about just being a stepmother, choosing to have that role, and how the media changes the perception of these roles for both the children and the stepmother, and even the potential partner. And this is, I think I gravitated towards this because I have personal life that is related to this, but also I grew up with two step parents, and I think it is a fascinating topic that I haven't seen written on, at least in this way. When I originally looked at books that were about this, a lot of them were like, you're a stepmom, here's how to do it. And I wanted more of a look about how we perceive the role and how the roles affected by the way it's perceived. And this was it, basically. I will say, even though it's very interesting, a really interesting book, really useful information, it is depressing. It doesn't have many solutions like other books have. It really, punches you with the statistics of step parenting and, how depressing it can be, especially for women. And it doesn't really say, step parenting, you are more likely to be depressed. Here's the solution. It just tells you that more likely to be depressed. So I can see people being a bit turned off by that, and I understand, but I think it's really useful information, especially if you have had a blended family when you were younger, or if you're in one. yeah, great informational book. The last book that I have is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura and Phillip Gabriel. This book, I didn't have any idea what I was really getting into with it. I really just saw the cover, saw people recommending it, and just went for it and started reading it. And fantastic book. So it's about Kokoro, who is, I think she's in middle school, and she does not want to go to school anymore. There's reasons for it, which I won't spoil, but she's very scared to go to school. And one day while she's at home, she finds a mirror glowing in her bedroom, and she steps through it and finds herself in a castle with a wolf queen, which is this little girl who wears a wolf mask, just like on the cover. And the wolf queen tells her and other children who have stepped through the mirror, their own mirrors, that they need to find a key in the castle, and whoever finds it will get one wish. So I won't spoil it from there, but interesting premise. Even when I kind of understood what was happening, I didn't really know where it was going, and the ending hit me so hard. I think I read this book very quickly. I read it in maybe a day or two, if even that. And I was up until 3 a.m. reading this just to finish it. And when the ending hit me, I cried. And I don't cry when I read books very often. I think the last time I cried was 10 years ago. And I do remember the book, but wow, it really did hit me. And it is such a poignant and great emotional ending, such a great impact. And it also did such a good balance of fantasy and reality. The real world was very realistic, and I can even see my younger self going through what Kokoro went through. The adults the same way. They're very layered. Her relationship with her mom is so sweet and has such a depth that I didn't really expect, especially since she was, Kokoro's going into a fantasy world. I didn't expect the relationship she had with her mom, and it was such a good surprise. Just really balanced that well. And then the reality the kids face when they're in the castle, it really did a good job of how these kids might actually react to being in this place. So, I mean, they don't, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but they don't look for the key at first. They kind of sit around and just chill in the castle, which was such a cool, realistic approach. If there was kids just in this huge castle and they can get away from the realities, that's kind of what they would do. So very, very great book. Definitely something I would perhaps reread, which isn't common for me. Even books I love, I don't often reread. So yeah, and that concludes my list for my favorite books of 2021. If you read them, I hope you enjoy them, and that's what I have. I hope you have a fantastic day.